Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time and joining us for a webinar on safe bicycling. It is Florida Bike Month, and this is a great way to celebrate and get us started. My name is Alyssa Frank, and I'm the pedestrian bicycle coordinator here at the Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency. I'm going to run through some slides today and then hopefully answer any questions that anyone in the audience may have. If you have any questions, you should be able to type in the Q&A box. I will address them after the webinar or after my slides are over. Thank you and enjoy. So many of you are familiar with this. March is Florida Bicycle Month, which is a wonderful initiative in the state of Florida. It actually is a great opportunity to not only discuss how to bicycle safely, but also talk about some of the rules and regulations that are in place in Florida. Today's webinar, we will discuss benefits of bicycling, bicycling safety basics, rules of the road, and of course, TPA resources in bicycling and bicycling initiatives. So first, there are many benefits of riding a bicycle. They include mental health, physical health, convenience, benefits to the local economy, community, and environment. These benefits cover an array of different things and really help improve the life and just quality of life for many residents that have bicycle infrastructure nearby. Some of the mental benefits include decreases in level of stress and anxiety, decreases in risk of depression, better sleep. Physical benefits include being able to move your body and exercise. It's convenient and a great way for door-to-door service, since parking for bicycles is often much easier to find and deal with than parking a vehicle. It's also often quicker than driving a car because of the parking time that you spend cruising for a parking spot. It's fantastic for communities and the local economy because bicycle infrastructure definitely provides direct access for those who do rely on it to door-to-door businesses, local businesses, shops, restaurants, all of that. And of course, the environment, because the more you're getting out of your vehicle and cycling, the better it is for the environment, the less pollution being emitted off the roadways. For bicycle safety basics, there are quite a few things that are always important to keep in mind and be aware of. The first is to wear a helmet. The second is an ABC quick check. The third thing that is always important to remember is that if you are visible and you are seen, you are or should be safe. Using communication and of course, knowing the rules of the road. I'm going to dive into each of these a little more in depth. So helmet safety. Fun fact, maybe not so fun, 85% of kids' head injuries can be prevented by wearing a properly fitted helmet. Florida Statute 316.2065 actually requires riders under the age of 16 years old to wear a helmet that is compliant with CFR Part 1203, which is the Federal Helmet Safety Standard. You will know if your helmet meets this requirement if it has the yellow sticker shown on the bottom of my screen in it. It's a really interesting thing to look for. Most helmets have it, some do not, but this is actually the Federal Safety Standard sticker that confirms that your helmet does meet these regulations. A lot of people aren't familiar with the requirements for how helmets should fit. There's actually a certification that can be given for helmet safety and fitting for it. There are 3 steps to fitting a helmet properly. The first is the 2-finger rule. This rule requires 2 fingers in width, so this much, between the eyebrows and the helmet. So my helmet should be sitting above my 2 fingers right here. The second rule is that the side straps need to make a Y below the ear. When we fit helmets, we make this with our finger and we put it next to our ear. This is where the helmet should be fitting. Remember, you need to have less than ½ inch between the chin and the strap here. You want the helmet to be firm so it's not going to go anywhere. Now, something that is often not noticed or even discussed in conversations with helmets is that immediately after a crash, your helmet did its job, it's no longer good. So it's important after any sort of crash, regardless of the degree of the crash, you need to replace your helmet because your helmet did its job in helping you and protecting you there, but it's time for a new one. Now let's see if this very quick graphic on how to, or video on how to fit a helmet plays. Yep. So the 2-finger rule first is very important. Make sure it fits there. And then after, check for the Y. Do the straps fit in the Y between your ears, around your ears? And then 1/2 inch between the chin and the strap. And now you're good to go. It's that easy and simple to fit a helmet properly. So next on to ABC checks, quick checks. Each part of the title, an ABC quick check, plays a very important role in what the ABC quick check actually is. The A is for air. Be sure that you have enough air in your tires before you ride. That's very, very important. B is for brakes. Inspect the pads for wear and replace if there's less than a 1/4 inch left. A lot of people don't know where the brakes are on the bike, so make sure you're not only checking the handbrakes up by your handlebars, but you're also checking where the brakes close down by your front and rear tires. Next, you want to check the chain. Check your chain to make sure that it's clean and not rusty. Bike shops often sell a spray that you can actually put on your chain if it is rusty and it'll clean it right up. You always want to make sure all of your equipment on your bike is in good condition. The 4th thing to check are your quick releases. Make sure that they are closed and pointing towards the back of the bike. The quick releases can be found by both tires and are really how the tires can't come off the bike quickly. So it's definitely important to make sure that your tires are stable and not going anywhere. And lastly, check. Take a quick ride, even if it's in a quick 5-foot circle, to check that everything on your bicycle is working properly and you can safely go on your ride that you have planned. So now on to bicycle safety basics. The most important thing when riding a bicycle, especially at night, but really anytime, is that you are visible and you are predictable. Now, when you're riding at night, it is very, very important to wear bright and reflective clothing and turn on your bike lights. What we see on the screen right now is a cyclist riding at night with both lights on, but also in neon yellow. When we talk about cycling, we love our neon colors. The brighter you are, the more visible you are, the safer you are. And when we talk about the lights and being visible, there's actually a specific law in Florida statute that refers to the specifications that the lighting should meet. Florida statute 316.2065 states that when riding a bicycle at night, you must be equipped with 2 lights. A white light in the front, which is visible from at least 500 feet away, and a red light in the rear, which is visible from at least 600 feet away. You can see this both in the graphic and in the image on the screen and how the lighting should look both at night and what you should be seeing in front and behind you. I did not mean to do that. Sorry about that. So the next thing that we talk about when we're talking about bicycling safety is communication. Communication is very, very important because remember, aside from being visible, we want to be predictable. We want the cars on the roadway to know what our next move is and to anticipate that. That is the way to cycle safely. So to communicate with both other cyclists, pedestrians, drivers, and just general users of the roadway, use hand signals to communicate your turning movements, lane changes, and when you're planning to stop. These are really simple hand movements and are shown on the screen on the left side. Stop is a fist up here. And when you're turning right and left, be sure to point in those directions. When you're slowing down, signal slow down with your arm. And when you're going ahead, you can push ahead like this with your arm. Those are pretty well known universal signals, but also it's okay to be vocal and say what you're doing out loud. Additionally, when you're approaching pedestrians and cyclists, be sure to ring your bell and tell them that you're passing on your left, especially when you're riding on a shared use path or other sort of pedestrian-based facility. It is okay to be vocal and announce that you are passing. That may in fact save your life. So now I'm going to dive into some rules of the roadway. These are Florida laws, so it's always important to keep that in mind. The first major thing to know is that a bicyclist on the sidewalk or shared use path must always yield to pedestrians. Sometimes this is posted on signage on these sorts of facilities, like what we see on the right side of the screen. Share the path, keep left, give way to pedestrians, sound your bell, do not block the path, all of that. But not always. There are quite a few facilities in Palm Beach County specifically where there isn't posted signs. So it's always just good to be aware of what the laws are. Florida Statute 316.2065 again reiterates that a cyclist on any sort of pedestrian-based facility must yield to pedestrians. This is a great time to ring your bike bell and say, passing on your left. And of course, it's always important to remember that Florida is a state where share the road is legal. In the absence of existing bicycle facilities on the road or off the road, even with them, it is legal to share the road between cyclists and vehicles. This is something that not all cyclists know, but even less vehicular operators know. It is okay to ride on the roadway. It is legal and definitely a place to be riding your bike if there are no other bicycle facilities on the corridor you are traveling. So I'm going to dive into Senate Bill 950 now. Senate Bill 950 was a Florida bill that actually went into effect on July 1st, 2021. So everything we're going to dive into now is new, but it is in effect and legal now. The first thing on here, probably one of the most noticeable changes to the bill, is that Florida Statute 316.0875 on no passing zones has changed. The new language actually now allows motorists to safely and briefly drive to the left of the center line or the double yellow stripe in the middle of the road to pass cyclists with a minimum of 3 feet passing distance. We can see this on the screen right now. First, let's look to the left side of the screen, where we see 2 vehicles in red and 2 cyclists in green. The vehicle that is behind the 2 cyclists, let's call it car 1, remains a safe distance behind the cyclists until they are able to pass and there's no oncoming traffic. Car 2, which is the traffic or the vehicle that's facing us and driving towards us, passes and is no longer an obstacle. And then vehicle 1 or car 1, which is again closest to us, can, as we see on the right side of the screen, pass over the double yellow center line stripe, pass the 2 cyclists, and then get back into their lane and continue traveling. This is what to do if there is no bike lane and a car needs to pass cyclists on the roadway. This next change actually will help mitigate right hook turns. The law now says that if a car, we're going to look at the red car, if this red car wants to make a right turn at any intersection, stop bar, anywhere, they need to make sure that there is no cyclists less than 20 feet away from them coming in the same direction. You see this is an example on the right side of the screen. The cyclist in green is over 20 feet away from that intersection. So that red car is permitted to make that right turn. But if we look to the left side of the screen, that green cyclist is less than 20 feet from the intersection, and that red car is making that turn. That is now illegal, as if that cyclist continues at that same speed and that car is making that turn slowly, that cyclist is very likely going to ride into that car, or that car would hit that cyclist. So adding this language to require a minimum of 20 feet will actually help mitigate those right hook crashes that we see. Here's another instance of the right hook crash. So the first example was at an intersection. This is a car making a turn onto a driveway. This law does not pertain to only one type of roadway, but this is any location in which you'd be a vehicle making a right turn and there may be a cyclist. So the takeaway for this is if you are driving a car, always be on the lookout and making sure that if you're making that right turn, there is no cyclist within 20 feet of you. And if you are cycling, make sure that you slow down and allow cars to make that right turn so you have no obstacle there with the right hook crash. Now, on to the next one. This movement is for left turns. So we're going to look at that left side of the screen first, and we see that green cyclist in that yellow box. Bicyclists that are making left turns may take that whole left turn lane to do so. Now, it's important to remember that when you're cycling, you are a vehicle on the roadway, so you must obey all of the same rules that any operator of a vehicle would be. So that means that if there is a stop bar and a stop sign and you are a bicyclist and you are a car, you are still required to stop at that stop bar or stop sign prior to moving on. So in this instance that we're looking at, this cyclist has gotten in that left turn lane and is stopped at that stop bar. Now, they are permitted to go. So now we look at that right side of the screen. So once that cyclist is permitted to go, they should make that turn and stay as close to the right edge of the roadway after crossing the intersection as practicable. So we see there are two lines from that cyclist. He could turn into the inside lane. He could turn into the outside lane. It's safest to turn into the outside lane and stay as close to the curb as possible. When we're talking about where cyclists should ride, in the absence of a bicycle lane, bicyclists must ride as close as practicable to the right-hand curb or edge of the roadway. We see this in this slide as the green cyclist is staying very close to that white outer edge of the road when the other two vehicles are letting him go. So we see that red car in the inside lane just continuing on, and we see that red car on the outside lane following at least 3 feet behind that bicyclist. Now, 3 feet is legally the minimum, but it's always nice to give the cyclist a little more space than that so they don't feel anxious or nervous or anything. So try to give them more than 3 feet of space around them, but remember that 3 feet is the law at minimum. So the cyclist on the screen may continue riding in that place, totally legal, and that is the safest place for him to ride in this instance. Now, in the instance that there is a bicycle lane, it is required to do single file, unless of course the bicycle lane is wide enough to accommodate two abreast. In this instance that we're looking at, the bicycle lane is too narrow to accommodate two abreast, so they must ride single file. Now, the image we see on the left side of the screen is an example of what not to do. There are 3 cyclists riding next to each other in a large group, and they're not all staying within the designated bicycle lane. Now, for safety concerns, we do want to push everyone to ride in the designated bicycle lane as opposed to what we see in that upper left picture where the cyclists are all over the place. It's much easier for vehicles to anticipate the movement of a cyclist if they're riding where they should be riding. Now, another example, if the bicycle lane is wide enough, cyclists may ride two abreast. We typically see bike lanes vary in widths from on a city road maybe 4 feet to on a state road 5 feet, and in some conditions even 6 or 7 feet. Now, this is great, but you're really unlikely to ride two abreast in a designated bike lane if it's less than 6 feet wide. So keep this in mind. Most of the time, if the facilities look like what we're looking at on the screen right now, you're likely going to be riding in single file conditions. So where can you ride more than single file or two abreast? Well, that's really on shared use paths or other sorts of facilities like the one we see here. What we're looking at now is the El Rio Trail in the city of Boca Raton. And this is an instance where we can have a variety of users and variety of sizes of bicycle groups riding next to each other. This is a facility, though, that does operate for both pedestrians and bicyclists. So what we had already talked about, ringing your bell and yielding to pedestrians, is the case on this facility. However, it is legal in these conditions to be riding as a group of what we see here, 3 or even 4 wide. Now, let's say you are riding in a bike lane and there's a cyclist in front of you and they are just riding too slow and you want to go faster. Well, that's okay. Senate Bill 950 actually introduces language where a cyclist can pass another cyclist in a bike lane. Now, we're going to look at the top side of the screen first. So the cyclist is riding behind a very slow other cyclist and wants to get around. When there is no traffic, no obstacles, they may simply cross over that designated bicycle line and into the travel lane, pick up a little speed, and pass the cyclist in that travel lane. After they have passed that cyclist with sufficient space, again, 3 feet, then that cyclist is able to get back into the bicycle lane and continue on their way. Now we look to the bottom portion of the screen. After the cyclist has passed that other cyclist and gets back into the lane, it is important that they continue riding in a single file condition until they get onto or to their destination. And that's what we see at the bottom sort of a part of the screen, single file continuation. So another interesting law that was introduced in Senate Bill 950 is how bicycle groups should operate at stop signs. Now, again, we already did talk about this, but if you're a cyclist, you do need to accept and meet all of the different laws that are already in place for vehicles. You're at a 3 or 4 way stop, you must come to a complete stop like the cars would prior to continuing through the stop sign in your trip. Now, what's interesting for this law is that it actually puts a size group for how many can go through a stop sign before a vehicle must stop again. This means that motor vehicles must allow a group of 10 to travel through the intersection before moving forward. So what we see right now is the yellow car went through the intersection and a group of 10 cyclists made their trip. And we see this at the right side of the screen. Now, after that group of 10 went, the turquoise car on the screen or blue car gets to go. So we see them crossing over the stop bar right now and making that left turn to follow the yellow car. Now, after this blue car is completely out of the intersection, the remaining 10 cyclists can, as a group without stopping again, carry through and ride through the intersection. Now, after another 10 cyclists go, another car would be permitted to go, and it switches on and off. Car, group of 10 cyclists, car, group of 10 cyclists. So at this point, I am going to share a very quick video on safe bicycling and a journey, and I hope that everyone can hear this. And then I will continue on with my slides after.
or may not be the law where you live, but it's always a good idea. Of course, part of the idea of wearing a helmet is not to put it to the test, not to have a wreck in the first place. And that's all about where you choose to ride and how you do it. Bikes are considered vehicles. So when you're riding a bike on the road, follow the same rules as car drivers do. Just like a driver, you need to look for and obey road signs and traffic signals. We're talking stop signs, yield signs, red lights, and so on. Keep to the right, but far enough from parked cars so you don't get clipped by a door that opens suddenly. Usually that's at least 3 feet. But what happens when you don't have 3 feet? When the lane narrows, for example. That's when you need to take the lane. Taking the lane means that you move into the center of the lane, just like a car. You should do this when the lane narrows or when you're coming up to an intersection or some other kind of turn. In these situations, the center of the lane is usually the best place to be. When it's time to change lanes, you should look for traffic, signal, and then move one lane at a time. Traffic will always be changing, so it's important to look and signal each time you want to change lanes. Anytime you're uncomfortable with a traffic situation, you have choices. You can get off the bike and walk on the sidewalk. You can choose a different route, one that has bike lanes, or slower traffic. Or you can use a combination of bike and transit. But no matter where you're riding, a road or a trail, always watch out for people walking. Move out of their way, and let them know when you're about to pass them on the left.
On your left.
If there's one thing drivers count on, it's predictability. So one of the best ways to be safe is to be predictable. For example, use hand signals before you turn or stop. Ride in the same direction the cars are going, with the flow of traffic, not against it. And don't assume that drivers will see you just because you see them. You already know this part, but we're gonna say it anyway. Put your phone away while you're riding. You don't want to be talking or texting because you need to be alert and paying attention to what you're doing. Same goes for earbuds or headphones. You need to hear what's going on around you, so leave them in your bag for later. Keep both hands on the handlebars unless you're signaling, and keep your eyes open for hazards, things like wet roads, gravel, debris, anything that can mess with your ride. As we said up front, it really comes down to 3 things. Be visible, be predictable, and follow the same rules as a car. Make sure that drivers can see you, that you let them know what you're about to do, and that you're following the rules of the road. That's it. Have a good ride.
Okay. So now I'm going to dive into some TPA resources that we do have available. The first thing is plan a walk bike safety audit. These are some awesome opportunities to get out there in the field and experience the existing built infrastructure in a community. We've been hosting these around the county, and they've been really fantastic at both identifying existing safety concerns, but also identifying some fixes and potential projects. These can include anything from new sidewalks to better bicycle infrastructure to relocating bus stops. There are really so many different options. These are great because we work with all stakeholders involved and get their input and include their input in our recommendations that again get sent out to the stakeholders. If you have any questions or would like any additional information on this, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. The next thing is that we have our interactive comment map, which is a really fantastic tool. Now, this is a map that allows viewers to enter transportation-related concerns and comments or suggestions onto our map. Now, all of these comments get logged by like a little icon that you see on the screen, dependent on the type of comment it is. And then TPA staff reviews the comments and identifies who the best person to respond or address those concerns would be. Those comments and concerns are then forwarded to that correct person, and then TPA continues to liaise that conversation with whoever the stakeholder might be to improve those concerns in that community. This information and this map is available on our website. Of course, we also do have our interactive map. This is a fantastic tool in identifying the existing infrastructure and status of things in Palm Beach County. We have everything on here from existing bicycle and pedestrian facilities and shared use paths to upcoming projects that are in our transportation improvement program and long-range transportation plan. We also have things like location of schools, bus stops, transit hubs, and even serious and fatality injuries and crashes. This is available on our website as well at palmbeachtpa.org/map. Now, of course, this webinar is in honor of Florida Bicycle Month, and this is the best way to kick off the month with, of course, talking about safe bicycling and how to continue all of the bicycling safely through Florida Bicycle Month. Now, of course, in addition to our webinars, this webinar, we do have 2 other webinars lined up. Next week, we have on Wednesday, March 9th from 9 to 10 a.m., a webinar on building cycling cities with Chris Brentlett of the Dutch Cycling Embassy. In this webinar, we'll talk about policies that can be put in place to really push forward cycling infrastructure in communities. The following week, on Tuesday, March 15th from 9 to 10:30, we will be hosting a webinar with Decisio and Mateo Jar from that agency. This webinar is going to be on bikeonomics and will be a truly fantastic webinar for anyone who is unsure about the benefits of implementing bicycle facilities. In this webinar, we'll talk about bikeonomics, or the economics related to adding that infrastructure and how it can really improve communities. Now, of course, I do have to mention that next Friday, March 11th, we will be hosting our annual TPA bike ride. We will be leaving from the TPA office at 8 a.m. sharp, and we will be doing registration and login and shirts at 7:45. Please join us if you have availability to do so. It is going to be a fantastic opportunity to highlight various destinations in downtown West Palm Beach, as well as start your Florida Bike Month off strong with a nice 3-mile ride. If you are interested in participating in this, please visit our website, but also reach out to me and I can help you get registered. And with that, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Again, please be sure to join us next Tuesday, March 9th, for our webinar on building cycling cities with Chris Brentlett and the Dutch Cycling Embassy, and for our ride next Friday, March 11th, for the ride. Now, with this, I'm going to take some questions and answers. If there are any, I do see that we have one question. So, okay, Diane, you are unmuted. Go ahead with your question.
Okay, I've been a bike rider for years up in Juneau and Jupiter Beach along A1A, and the problem we're having about bike safety is the police not enforcing the state law about letting joggers in the bike lane. And we have been, my husband and I, for years, I don't know how many times we've always been knocked off our bikes and injured. What is the key of, now Jupiter Police did start cracking down on it here about 6 months ago. As I've talked to numerous Jupiter officers that are on the beach patrol, the problem they're having is Juneau Beach officers are not enforcing the law. So these joggers are starting in Juneau Beach and heading north into Jupiter. I have directly contacted the chief of police in Juneau Beach. I have talked to a major there. I've actually contacted our state rep for this district up here, and they have basically done nothing. This is very frustrating that we have police officers that won't enforce the law. What can be done about this?
That's a great question, and thank you for bringing that up. I have heard very similar complaints for that area. And honestly, this is definitely something that could be done, or that more education, especially for law enforcement officers, really benefit from. I do have some contacts up in Juneau, so I will definitely be reaching out and making sure or seeing what we can do to help them enforce that better. But I also do know that the state of Florida and FDOT specifically is working on quite a few educational campaigns that are targeted to law enforcement officers to really get them to uphold the enforcement better moving forward. I can definitely send you over some additional information after this and some updates that I have gotten from our law enforcement liaison, who is liaison between FDOT and everything going up in Tallahassee or going on in Tallahassee, as well as everything going on with our local law enforcement agencies. So I can definitely pass that on. But really, at this point, what can be done and what should be done the most is a very thorough and robust education campaign. Of course, when I say education, I firmly do believe that it needs to be done for all users of the system. So of course, cyclists and motor operators or motorists, but specifically law enforcement and elected officials as well, because people really do need to know that laws are laws. Runners, joggers should not be running in the area that's designated for cyclists, especially as cyclists are going so much faster, as I'm sure, I don't know how fast you and your husband ride, but in most cases you're going quite a bit faster than people who are walking or even jogging. So there really is a safety hazard there. And like I said, I will be sure to pass that on to my contacts up in Juneau and getting that addressed.
Yeah, thank you. And one of the problems is on Saturday morning, there's a big running club that starts at Dunkin' Donut, and they go up Donald Ross up to A1A and head north. Almost every Saturday, there's a whole group of them. They're out in the bike lane early in the morning. Yeah, and we've numerous times we've told the Juneau Beach Police to go up, and they will do nothing. So I don't know what kind of power these joggers have over law enforcement. Of course, they say the joggers' complaint is the asphalt's a lot softer on their feet than the concrete sidewalks. But if that's the case, why don't they just run down on the beach? The beach is right there. That's soft on their feet.
Definitely.
So I know it's an ongoing problem and it's not an easy fix, but like you said, we need to educate people. But unfortunately, people don't want to follow the rules, as we know. That's the type of world we live in today. But I appreciate your help. This was really learned a lot about the bicycle helmet information too. It was very helpful.
Of course, happy to help out. And I should note that one of our TPA or some of our TPA adopted or soon to be adopted legislative policies do also affirm the enforcement and education aspect of this. And once they are approved by our governing board, they will be sent up to Tallahassee, and we will be pushing for some of these more robust education campaigns. So I do hope that and believe that that will be beneficial in the future.
Yep, great. Thank you again for your help.
Of course.
And your information. Yep.
Thank you for participating.
Will do.
So at this time, I do not see any other questions arising. So with that being said, I would just again like to invite everyone to join us both next week for our webinar on building cycling cities, and also next Friday for our TPA bike ride. We hope that everyone can join us, and we look forward to seeing you at future TPA-led events. Oops, okay, yes, of course, you're welcome. We look forward to seeing everyone at our webinars, and at our bike ride. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your Thursday.